I flew in the predecessor to the P-8, the P-3 aircraft, so had some experience with the Navy flying these aircraft, and got interested in training systems. I did training while I was in the service, and later on in my career became interested in doing test and evaluation, and that kind of led into where I'm at right now, doing testing on an aircraft training system. So that's kind of the quick of what I'm doing right now and how I've arrived here. So actually, it was, I would say, this was kind of a roundabout arrival at where I'm at right now. So from a very young age, I've always been interested in aviation. And when I was in high school and was thinking about what I wanted to do and study in college, thinking about a career, I knew it was going to be something related to aviation because it was something that, as a youngster, I was drawing aircraft, making models of aircraft, going to museums to look at aircraft. So it was always something that I really had a strong interest in. And it was kind of natural for me to think of aeronautical engineering as the field of study, to learn more about it. And that's what I pursued in college, to get a degree in aeronautical engineering. Upon graduation, though, I decided I was interested in flying in the aircraft and using them to do a job, which is what led me into the service, into the Navy, to fly in the aircraft. Although I always knew that I wanted to become involved with sort of the development side of aircraft, how they're put together, making aircraft kind of was kind of what I had thought about early on in my career, but knew that was going to be a little bit later on after I'd gotten some experience. I actually wanted to, I had gotten a lot of theoretical, kind of the book knowledge in college, but actually now had a chance to fly in aircraft and see how kind of all those principles that you learn in school were applied into a real airplane. And so I got to do that for several years. And later on in my career in the Navy, I transitioned to jobs that were more related to the building of aircraft and then testing of those aircraft later on. And eventually I retired from the Navy and went to work for the Boeing Aircraft Company, doing testing of a flight trainer, which appealed to me because it was related to an aircraft, but it wasn't as time consuming. Going and testing an aircraft is a very long process in preparation to do that. And a flight simulator allowed me to do testing a little bit quicker. And so that appealed to me. So I got into that, and then kind of came back, and I now work again for the Navy as a civilian, testing these trainers. So it was just kind of a natural progression throughout my career as I found things that I was interested in areas that drew upon things that I wanted to learn about, experiences that I wanted to have. Kind of just made my way to the position I'm at right now. I didn't have I wouldn't say I had a plan along the way. I changed directions, had options along the way to go different paths and do different things. And over a period of time, came to understand what I was interested in, and when opportunities would arise where I saw something that looked like it was interesting and was something that I thought I would have a opportunity to learn something new and contribute to a program with, and be rewarding, then that was an opportunity. If I could take it, I did. And this is kind of how I've gotten to where I'm at now.
Sort of following similar lines to that question, what do you think best prepared you for your current job? Was it your education or your experience in the Navy or just personal interest?
There's in the position where I'm at right now, what it draws on a lot of the things that I have done over the years. So there's quite a bit that really set me up. I mean, having the engineering degree helps with some of the work that I do. Having the actual experience flying in the aircraft helps as well. While I was in the Navy, I studied and got a master's degree in operations research, which is kind of applied probability and statistics. So for doing testing, analyzing data that's generated, those help. And then the other side is just in the Navy and in flying with other people and working with other people, just working as part of a team. That whole aspect, the kind of the human aspect of working on projects, working with other people, getting along, trying to have a goal that we're all working towards. Just like you guys do with the robotics, you're all working towards the same type of goal, and you got to work together, and everybody needs to know what they're doing and or figure out what they can do to contribute. And experiences that I had throughout my career helped with that. And so now in the position where I'm at, where I'm somewhat of one of the more senior flight test engineers on my team, I draw upon a lot of those experiences. So there's really, that breadth of experience really helps me with the current work that I'm doing right now. So there wasn't any one thing that really stands out. It's a lot of a broad range of experiences kind of come together to help when working on a team. And kind of just to give a little bit more about the team that I do work on. I'm on a test team, but we are part of a larger team that involves not just engineers. There's various different types of engineers. I'm a test engineer. We have systems engineers who really focus more on what the system is required to do. So thinking about, like what you guys do with the robot, they give you some guidelines for what the robot needs to do, what it can't do. And you need to be aware of that. And then you have people on the team that maybe are driving it to see how well it works and how well it meets those goals. So likewise, we have that. We have folks that work on financing because most of the stuff you got to pay for. So there's folks that do finance. We have folks that do logistics, computer software engineering. There's quite a broad range. Well, shoot, even probably some folks in the legal realm because we're dealing with contracts and whatnot. So it's a very large team. Similar to again, trying to draw a parallel to your robotics team. You have some folks who are working on a notebook, or others who are doing outreach. You all have to work together. You're all trying to work towards the same goal. Very similar to the position that I'm in, where I'm working with people from a lot of different areas. So a number of those experiences throughout the career of working with different people really helps to now be part of this large team where we're all working together to try and get the best trainer we can for the people that are using it. Respecting the opinions of others, listening to the other team members is probably one of the most important aspects. Treating everybody fairly, giving everybody an opportunity to contribute, and from my perspective, or at least in the roles that I've had, I try and understand the different personalities that are parts of the team, and what are the strengths that people bring to it, and try and allow people to contribute in ways that that they want. I find that's helpful. And then when there's things that perhaps folks don't want to do, distributing the load evenly amongst the team members so that everybody kind of shares in some of the things that are maybe less enjoyable, that things that need to get done. Well, for instance, making the entries in your notebook. Instead of counting on one person to do it, making sure that everybody knows that, hey, this is something that's important for all of us, and we have to do it, or at least if we want to be successful, everybody needs to do their part. That's I guess there's a lot of nuances, but at the same time, it's some pretty simple stuff. As long as folks are, feel like they're contributing, not being excluded, having their voice and opinion heard, and nobody's being stuck kind of doing all the unpleasant jobs that need to be done. That's been one of the most important aspects of things that I've seen, and also giving people an opportunity to lead in areas that maybe they're interested in, they maybe haven't done before. A chance to kind of be the star on the team for a while. I think that's important as well, to let everybody get a chance to kind of be the center of attention, and be the focus, so they get a chance to kind of set themselves up to be recognized for their unique contributions.
Yeah, so it sounds like playing people's strengths is really important when you're working on a team. So I guess another question I have is, how much would you say technology, or to what is technology important to your job? How important is technology?
It it really it plays it plays an extremely large role in the trainer itself. We're dealing with an aircraft that has only been fielded, in operation for a couple of years now, and the systems on that aircraft are continually being updated. So, again, drawing the analogy to your robot there, if you've got a drivetrain, and then, hey, somebody has an idea that we want to implement a different drivetrain, and that's going to be implemented after this next competition. How are we going to incorporate that? You've got this new technology that you want to implement. It's similar to the work that I'm doing. We regularly have updates to the trainer, incorporating new technologies, new systems on it. And so understanding what those systems are, so for my role as a test person, I need to understand, what are those systems supposed to do? What type of performance? What are they supposed to provide? And how are we going to measure that performance, under what types of conditions, and then how do we report that out? And how well, or how do we establish that the system's doing what it's supposed to? Again, going back to kind of the robot, you want to, in order, you figure out that in order for you to be able to score a certain number of points, the robot's going to need to go at least a certain speed. So you might look at, okay, how are we going to test to make sure that the speed is working, and what are the conditions? Maybe we have to drive over some sort of a partition on the game floor, and how are we going to test that to make sure that it does it and pieces don't fall off, or something like that. So I'm dealing with technology in that regard. As far as like managing the team, we try and, there's a lot of information. You guys deal with a lot of information too, and and so I'm trying to think. I forget some of the tools that you guys had for the Trello or something or other for kind of managing tasks and whatnot. We have similar types of tools that we're using to keep track of what everybody's working on, when things are due, how progress is being made. So when you have a long-term project, trying to utilize the software tools or computing tools that are available is something that we try and use on a routine basis. So okay, so well, as for me, the testing that we do, we're kind of doing the point where you guys stick a driver at the controls and then see if you can see if your robot does what it needs to do. And we do a similar type of a test where we're going to get pilots to come and sit in the flight simulator and fly the simulator and give us feedback on how it performs. There are some tests that we do that are more instrumented, where the control stick in the simulator may have to provide a certain amount of resistance to the inputs. You can think of like a sim racing steering wheel, that force feedback, similar type of thing. We would be measuring the amount of force it takes to turn a wheel or something. But really, for the most part, we're getting an assessment from personnel that are operating these aircraft to find out how well the simulator simulates the actual real-world experience of operating in an aircraft. I mean, as a team, we have tools that are really more focused on just doing the project management and tracking, things like you guys would probably use, like Word for writing up a test report or keeping notes in when we go to a test event. We use a program called Confluence, which is a kind of a task management where you can put in, you got different people and the different tasks that they're going to be working on. It helps you manage that. But for the most part, the testing that we're doing is not relying so much on, well, the entire trainer is a computer simulation. So there's a lot of technology there, and there's more to that than one. That's a aspect of the simulation that I don't need to worry about. What's going on kind of behind the curtain to make the simulator work. But there, just as an example here for types of technology that are involved, we in a flight simulator like of this type, there's simulating the aircraft and the controls of the aircraft and the systems that are on the aircraft, and then there's simulating the entire environment. So the atmosphere and how radio waves go through the air, visual systems, acoustic systems, radar systems, things like that are all being simulated. So there's a whole lot of technology going on, but that's more at a software testing. That's more at a software engineering level, whereas I'm testing more at the overall system level of the entire trainer. So again, just to real quickly kind of put the analogy together, if one of you guys were testing on your robot there, you may have somebody who's going in, who's doing the software coding, and they may be going through just checking to make sure that when you press a particular button on the control stick, that the robot turns left or right. That's one level of testing, making sure that the software code's running correctly. There's another level of testing that's to see whether or not that device that you guys are working on actually accomplishes, the goal of doing something out on the floor. So that's, hopefully that helps answer kind of, but I mean, it's not. It depends on what um, there's various different levels. I personally am not too heavily involved in software testing, other than making sure the system performs like it's supposed to.
All right, it sounds like you work on some pretty cool stuff with the flight simulator. So what would you say is your favorite part of your job?
Coming up with ways to do it better. So and you can imagine, again, I'll go back to the robot there. How do you make it go faster? How do you make it, whatever the goal is with that thing? How do you do a little bit better? How can we do this quicker or get better information? So as a test person, my job is, to help provide information to the rest of our team, to let them know how successful are we at doing what we're supposed to be trying to do. And when you have a very complex system that does a lot of things, and you don't have a whole lot of time to evaluate it, you have to balance getting a really large amount of information, maybe about one specific thing, but then it's a trade-off. Then you can't do other things. Again, draw an analogy. Say you've built a robot. It's got some sort of a claw or something, but then the robot also has to move, and it has to turn, and it has to recognize pictures on the sides of the wall. You could spend a lot of time trying to get one thing really well evaluated, but then you don't have the time to do the other things. So you have to figure out what's the best way to evaluate something very thoroughly in a limited amount of time. So that's, for me, it's an interesting problem to try and get the best information we can, so that when the simulator gets used, or for you guys, when the robot goes out there for its first competition, that it's successful in doing what you built it to do. And just like you guys, we run into the same thing where something eventually we find out didn't work quite as well as we did. One of the things that I try and do is minimize the amount of times that comes up. So that's one of the more rewarding aspects of the work that I do, is trying to come up with better ways to get information about the device that we're testing. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that. You know what? For somebody who's really interested in aircraft, I've had the chance to work on some pretty fun aircraft. I mean, one, just flying in them. That's probably been the neatest thing, is seeing the aircraft, seeing the systems that are used on the aircraft, how all that technology gets brought together to do whatever the job is of the particular aircraft. That's and then these simulators have really come a long way. Very, very impressive, some of them, and how well they simulate what the real world is. So that's been one of the most enjoyable aspects of it. Well, I think if knowing, I would say make sure it's what you want to do. I mean, I think it's important for you to pursue what you're interested in. I mean, certainly if this is, if what I'm doing seemed interesting, and that's kind of what I did. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I mean, what I'm doing right now, I would say, going back to when you talked about how did I get to this point, it certainly was not planned. I mean, I knew there was an area that I was interested in, and so I'd say, don't limit yourself to what you think you might want to do. Explore some other options, or when opportunities come up. I mean, that's so for me. That was one of the things, being in the Navy, where there were times where I got to choose what I wanted to work on for a while, and there were times where there were things that I had to do, and But interestingly enough, even though I did a number of assignments that I would not have thought to do, there was rarely, I can't think of any that I didn't find rewarding in one way or another. And likewise, kind of going back to, like what you're studying, be open to other things that you might not have thought about. For instance, I said I studied aeronautical engineering in college, and when I was going to graduate school, I had planned to study aeronautical engineering and get a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. It just seemed like the natural thing to do. But I went to the Naval Postgraduate School, so there was only a limited number of class seats in any class. By the time I had signed up to get enrolled, all the positions in aeronautical engineering were taken. And I looked at some other things. I thought, well, I'm interested in probability and statistics, so why don't I go into the degree that uses some of that? And I probably enjoyed it more than I would have if I had done the aerospace engineering. It was something that I had an interest in, but I had never really gotten too much into, and I had an opportunity to. And surprise, I really enjoyed it, and it has been something that I've found beneficial, being able to apply it to a number of different things as my career has gone along. So I say, don't be open to other opportunities. If what you're looking to do doesn't happen right away, look for ways to learn something from what you're doing, because chances are an opportunity is going to come up again in an area that you may have originally thought about. Like my case, it was like probably 15 years later, an opportunity came around to kind of get back to what I thought I was going to do originally, and I was happy to do it. But I think the experiences and other things that I had along the way really helped me to do that job later on better than I would have if I had gotten into it right away. So as you think about what are some things that you want to do, and you kind of envision, how am I going to get there? I guess it's good to always kind of have a goal out there that you're working towards. But if you take some detours along the way, don't get disappointed with that. Take from it what you can, and as you go along, you may find that other things come up that you hadn't thought about, and you want to pursue that. So I can't really say how to get to where I'm at. I mean, I took one path. Shoot, there's people that I work with on my team that graduated at UCF, and they came right into this program and are doing work similar to me. And that's a very different path than how I got here. But I think each one of us brings something to our program, a different perspective. So there's not just like one way to get there. So be open to different opportunities as they come along to learn what you can. Because there's a lot to go into working on a team, rather than just having a specific degree or specific knowledge. Superpower. let's see. It'd be nice to be able to learn very fast. Because I mean, so in my, like I said, I do a lot of different things, and you talk about kind of the technical aspect, and a lot of times there are situations where I know what I want to do, but I may not know how to do it. Although I do know how, I do know how to go out and learn how to do whatever it is I need to. But kind of coming back to that, talking about that time thing. Especially, okay, so you've got deadlines that you have to work with, and you're trying to figure out something. So, I mean, if I could, I'd love to be able to, look up a subject and I want to know how to calculate the likelihood of a problem. I want to calculate, based on how often the robot has not been able to get across this threshold, I want to be able to calculate whether or not we're going to be able to make it to the finish line or wherever we need to go. And that requires, doing some advanced statistics, stuff that I maybe haven't done for a while. Trying to brush up on that and refresh my mind on how to do those things. But that comes up in all different sorts of areas. I have ideas that I work with. One of the other things that I enjoy with the team that I work with is just, really, there's that technical aspect of working with a team, and then there's, again, you're working with other people, and how do we get the most out of everybody that's on that team? How do we get them to, and making that happen is almost just as hard as the technical challenges, working with other folks. And there's different ways, to do that, and spend a good amount of time just reading up on different subjects. You get an idea of something that you want to try and implement. So I want to read up on it, try and get a little bit smarter. If I had a superpower, that would go faster. So I have a great idea and I want to implement it. I'd be able to, come back to the team the next day and say, "Hey, I'm a genius about this. Listen to me." So that would be my superpower if I could have one.
That's a good superpower. I don't know if I've heard that one, but that would totally be useful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't recall any superheroes that learn quickly, but there you go.
No, I'm all good.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the questions. I've enjoyed spending the time answering your questions. Hopefully, gives you a little different perspective. I'm sure you talked to a number of folks, so hope something came of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.